What is going on, everyone? It is My Nerd Swag TV, and I am excited tonight. I'm going to get to interview someone. I met him last year at the Grand Island Comic Con. He is a legend in the WCW and as a wrestler, and he has a new book that just came out called Meet Dave Sullivan. And my guest tonight is going to be none other than Dave Sullivan himself.
The number one Hulkamaniac in the world, Dave Sullivan. Dave Sullivan and Big Dave or Evad. Whatever. Back of the neck.
How are we doing tonight, my friend?
Good, my friend. Thank you so much for having me on tonight.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. It's gonna be. I'm really excited to get to talk to you and really just talk about the book. And what's interesting is like just kind of your whole story of how you got into wrestling. To me is really interesting because it seems like a lot of guys start. It's like that's the plan getting into it, and it seems like you got interested a little later in the game. Is that fair to say?
That's very true. Very true. Yeah, I didn't really get interested until I was coaching. When I got done playing football and everything, and I was coaching up at St. Cloud, and we had a wrestling event up there to raise money, and it was back when they're all territories, like we talked about earlier. And Andre was there, Jesse the Body, Ken Patera was part of the AWA because it was up in Minnesota, and they came and did a show. And once you see the giant in person walk next to him, it's just you had to duck to get in the building, and it was just amazing.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean. You're a giant though yourself, so if you're calling them a giant, that's pretty amazing. Like how tall are you?
6'4".
Yeah, bro.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess you don't feel like a giant, but us mere mortals, we're not used to hanging out with people that are above the 6'1" range. So that's amazing. Yeah. So you in college you did actual wrestling. The sport of wrestling before you went into professional wrestling, and then you were also football. You did football, and then became assistant coach, right?
Correct.
Awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, what's back then? What would the process be that to get started into it? Like, how was the introduction? You said you had a fundraiser, but like, who kind of got you like plugged into?
Well, it was Harley Race. It was because I took the offensive coordinator job down at Washburn. So I traveled down to Topeka and moved down there, and I was out recruiting in Blue Springs, and it's totally changed now compared to back then. But it was a small one-school town, and met Harley Race, and his kids lived out in Stillwell, and they were going there. And he had a real good receiver, a son that was a receiver. So I got to recruit him, and he said, kid, because he always smoked cigarettes. He goes, kid, and he always called guys younger than kids. Kid, you ought to look at this business, go into it. Really? So during my first summer there coaching, I decided to go over there and meet and see him and start working out. And so then I just started training in the summertime while I was coaching.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing.
And then I used to drive up and down the road with him. We were to the CW, the same thing. So, kid, where do you want to? And he would. He was always going like, I don't know, back then, if you remember, the speedometer only went to 85 miles an hour, right? They didn't go to 120. Yeah. They had that governor, and that sucker set at 85. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how fast we're going. And he'd just go around. I mean, he'd go to me once in a while, and he goes, kid, in another life, I was a race car driver. I said, okay. I was sure when I rode with Harley, I was buckled up, man.
That's amazing. Yeah. And those even the seatbelts back then are way different than what we have now. Like that's a whole special thing. So that's hilarious, brother. That's hilarious. Yeah. So I mean, what was kind of the first match like when you got started in this? What did it like? What was the beginning process that kind of helped you get going on this stuff?
Well, you train and they just beat you. I mean, you got to hit the ropes like for an hour straight, and you run stairs, you carry dummies up, or you carry each other up, and and I threw up a few times when I was doing football, and I had to try out play a little with the Steelers, and I never threw up like I did when I was getting trained for wrestling. My God, yeah. So I tried after a while. I just never ate a whole lot before I went because I knew I'd get coughing back up. So that, and they stretch you and all that stuff like that, so you understand how the holds really work to hurt somebody. So when you're in the ring, you put them on so you don't hurt somebody.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. I don't think people really know how physical pro wrestling is. The amount of stuff that you've got to be prepared for is unbelievable. And, even the slams, the way you hit the ground, I mean, those kind of impacts have got to take a hold. So,
Yeah. And back then you did it 300 plus nights a year. And,
wow.
some days you like on a Saturday or Sunday, you could do 2 shows in a day. So,
Yeah.
I mean, they've changed a lot of that now, but that's the way it worked back then.
Yeah. Even like, okay, so if on a weekend, if you're doing several shows, like what's the rest of the week like? Are you just recovering the whole time and icing up, or are you stretching? Like, how do you come back from this?
Depends. It depends, because you could be on a 16-day straight shot, and then you get a week off, and then you're back on the road again. So it depends who you're working against and how it's set up and what town they got and how many towns they have going and all that stuff. So you could work there. Sometimes I think I work 20 straight days.
Wow. Good grief.
So,
yeah.
Hitting the ring. So, I mean, that's the hard part about it, is because you're just constantly wrestling, and you basically ice and do other stuff for the day, or in the morning, and work out just to get loosened back up so you're ready to go that night.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. Well, talk about like just the beginning, like the beginning of your career, like how like you even developed some of the characters you developed. And because I know, the most famous you have is, and I, being a Hulkster, I actually have, I have the WWC or the WCW card of you. It's in a lunchbox with other of my other cards, including some So you don't have the Hulkster outfit on, where you're his number one Hulk fan, but it's you just dropping onto someone hardcore. So, but what's the beginning phase of like figuring out kind of your character and who you are?
Well, they do that in the training, and then once you're in training, they try to come up with a name that you can start with, and then you just back then. Nowadays, you got to start these. Like what the MWA is a small organization. You work within a small territory. Independent shows, they're calling it.
Yeah.
But back then, it was all territory. So when I started out, I was working in Kansas and Nebraska and Missouri, and we just go town to town and wrestle. And back then, they didn't put me on TV back then because I needed to learn how to work, what they called it. And so you made a lot of mistakes when you're first starting out, just like any guys do.
Sure. Yeah. That's amazing. So, and what is when you're developing a character, like what's your favorite? Do you care what side you get to be on, or are you happy to be the heel, or are you wanting to be the good guy, or
I always liked being the bad guy, because the bad guy kind of is in charge of the match and how it goes. The heel.
Yeah.
And overseas they call him overseas? It's always blue eyes and villain. Okay. So I always like being the villain.
Nice.
And but my personality, I'm a nice person, so I ended up being a good guy. But it was more fun to be a villain, because maybe it was my ultra ego, where it was. But I enjoyed people booing me and throwing stuff at me and all that stuff like that.
That's epic. Yeah, that's amazing. So you're saying if you're playing the heel or the villain, you're actually kind of leading. You're leading the match and kind of leading.
Back in the day when I was trained, it was the villain's job to be sure the match went right.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. So, and it's, you kind of started in what was the first area you started in? Puerto Rico?
No, it was in Kansas, Missouri territory. We were the central states back then.
Yeah.
And then after that, I went up to Portland. I went up to Don Owens and Rowdy Piper up there in Portland, the PNW, and then that was part of the NWA too.
Okay. Wow.
Because AWA was separate. There's WWW. Back then it was the WWF, but all the other territories around the United States were part of the NWA, the National Wrestling Alliance. Because Flair would fly around all these territories and wrestle the champion in that territory.
Oh wow! Then. Okay, yeah. So
Andre would be loaned out too, because he was such a draw.
Yeah,
him just known he was known on the card. People just fly.
Wow. So it's funny. I got a friend, like I told him that I was interviewing you. He was so stoked. He swears to me that you were in Tulsa and Oklahoma within the same either weekend or day. The way he talks about it, like he went to the Tulsa match and then drove to Oklahoma City to watch the Oklahoma City match also.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, was that kind of common that you'd literally just pack up and be doing another show just as soon as possible and when you're doing that?
Yeah. When you're booked, you
Yeah.
kind of got to make both showings. So yeah, you do the
So
one
wild.
early afternoon, you come back for a late night show. Yeah. In a different part of the state. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it was different back then.
I mean, what was going on during that time because it seems, I mean, now there's not any of this, right? It's just, it's
you pretty got your independent shows around the whole United States.
Yeah.
And these are promoters like we do here in Nebraska, MWA's Brian Blade. And so you got certain ones within the region.
Are these still feeders into kind of going up?
It can be.
Okay.
You know, then you these guys try to get booked into NXT, which is in Florida, which is kind of the starting ground of being the WWE, I should say.
Yeah. But so when all this was going on, I mean, there's territories everywhere, and it seemed like I guess this is probably when the WCW starts, this is kind of when it seems like stuff is starting to, I don't know, come together.
Vince, what happened was Vince started taking the top wrestlers out of each territory, like he did Hogan, because Hogan was in the AWA.
Yeah.
And Rowdy Piper was down in the South, and Paul Orndorff. So he took those talents from all those territories and took them to wrestling and went nationwide. And then what happened was Ted Turner bought the NWA, and when he did that, he turned it to WCW, and it was also so basically you had two nationwide organizations back then, which was the WCW and the back then they were the WWF.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's amazing. So how did you get involved? I mean, how did you come into the WCW?
Well, I was in the PNW, Pacific Northwest, for a while there, and then I'd go there and I'd work Europe and Japan in the off, and then I was down in Puerto Rico and I was rooming with Dirty Dick Murdoch.
Okay.
Which he's also a roommate of Dusty Rhodes back in the day, and at that time Dusty Rhodes was kind of in charge of the WCW, and so he called Dick about me when I was down there, and then Dick said, "Yeah, he'd be good for you." So he brought me up, and I was in the WCW.
Okay. How long were you in the WCW?
Him and Dick lived here in Omaha. Him and Dick lived in Omaha together when they were part of the AWA, so they go way back.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, man, it's amazing how many legends
Matter of fact, when they lived in Omaha, they had a mule with them. They let it stay in that. They let it stay in the house here in Omaha. And Dusty said, Dusty said it would crap all over the damn place.
Oh my God.
I said, really? I said, no kidding, Dusty. It's an outdoor animal, man.
Yeah. That's insane. That's hilarious. Yeah. What was it like back then? I mean, what was there? I mean, I'm sure you guys built camaraderie. Who did you like hanging out with? Like, do you have any stories like of that? Like, what was those? Give us the Wild West of this time. Like, let us really show us the landscape of what it was like back then.
Well, it was quite interesting and fun. Because you traveled so much. You know, they'd fly you into a big airport, then you'd make a round and hit all the spots. And so, the guys Flair would go out all the time, but you couldn't go out all the time with Flair because he'd drink nonstop.
That's wild.
I mean,
yeah.
And then he'd go the next day and he'd work his butt off and sweat it all off. But then the next night, I mean, so once in a while you'd go with Rick, and it was nuts. It was all night long.
Yeah,
it was just partying with women, all kinds of stuff. So it was quite the wild time. But most of the time, it really didn't matter if you're back. We'd try to respect that a little bit back then, that not hang out with our rivals, but you'd still run at each other once in a while when you're out and stuff, and you just couldn't help it. But you try to, if you're in the same bar, you try to be separated.
Okay.
But then we drink at the hotels a lot just because, you get there late and the bars were closed, and you just would grab some coolers and sit around and tell stories and just laugh and joke till you passed out, went to sleep.
Wow. That's wild. Yeah. And then you get up and do it all over from town to town to town.
Yeah. I'll tell you a story one time. We were driving to West Virginia. And it was Harley Race was driving. It's Paul Orndorff in the back seat, and I was in the front with Harley. And we're going through. Have you ever been to West Virginia? Those mountain towns. It's just like pig trails all over the way. Yeah. And that sucker's going because we're trying to get up to a show, and he's going to, Paul's in the back seat praying, and I'm like going, oh my God, I'm holding that dang rail on top, just praying the guy we don't go off the road.
We call that the Dear God bar. Yeah.
He'd go around people, he couldn't see where he was going. And we're gone. But we got there early, but just like, man, I tell you what, I thought I saw my life a couple times go ahead of me too, just come right off that cliff.
That's amazing.
But he could drive. Unbelievably fast and not make a mistake. He was just that good with the wheel.
That's wild. Yeah.
Plus, he's a tough sucker. Nobody ever messed with Harley either.
Yeah, yeah.
He was pretty tough.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, tell us about kind of like when did Dave Sullivan? Oops, just lost my headphones. When did Dave Sullivan come into existence? Like,
Well, I was
you got partnered with Kevin.
Yeah, it was Equalizer, and then and then Kevin came in, and he was part of the booking. They wanted to hire him as part of the booking committee.
Yeah,
Dusty did, and then also his character too. And then when he did that, that's what he said, because we looked a lot alike. So he said, "Why don't we do this twins thing like Arnold and Danny?"
Yeah, yeah.
And so then they come in. That's how they bring my brother in, because I'm all the way up here, and he's 5'7", and
yeah.
And so they thought it would.
I was watching a match last night where he's taunting someone about how big you are, and I guess it's supposed to be that I can't remember who it was. You guys were ready. Oh, was it the Nasty Boys?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and they're like, yeah, well then bring your brother out if he's so big, and then you come out and you're just a monster, and that's brilliant.
And so we had a good run doing that and everything, and it was great. Kevin's great work, so were the Nasty Boys. We went all over the country, the world, wrestling each other, and beating each other up every night, because we always had wild matches. We go outside the ring, go over the chairs, the tables, and all that stuff.
Yeah,
because that was their character, and that was kind of our character too.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's awesome. When did y'all? I mean, from the beginning of putting y'all together, was it also going to be a plan to make Dave the dyslexic kind of humorous version, or did that come?
Yeah, that kind of came along as a character with Kevin. Yeah. Kevin's a kind of funny brainstormer. He kind of come up with that, so we kind of went with it. And then eventually Hulk. They come up with the idea of making me the Hulkamaniac and all that stuff like that. So that's it was just kind of went that type of thing.
Yeah, and that was kind of also when you guys seemed to split, also, right? When that all
that
built up into the big.
He went more of the Dungeon of Doom, and I kind of went off with Hulk. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. So what does it look like? I mean, what is that like with partnerships when stuff like that happens? Y'all still keep friendships on the backside?
Oh yeah, I talked to Kev. Oh yeah, I still talk to Kevin today. He's a good man. I really like him, and I enjoy him. Awesome. He's a good person.
Yeah, no, that's so fun. That's so
a lot of wrestling knowledge with Kevin.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, and how long did you guys work together as partners?
About 3 years almost before I went with Hogan.
Yeah, and then so at that point too, like that's when kind of the cable TV side of things are really starting to blow up too, right?
Blew up big, in the late '80s and early '90s, that's where it blew up big. Cable pay-per-views and all that stuff.
It also seems kind of like that's when that kind of seemed like the almost revival of wrestling is kind of in that era too, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean. Yeah, because it was kind of going through a slump through the 70s and early 80s. Then, of course, Hogan got on Rocky, if you remember. Mm-hmm. Of course, Giant, whoever the Giant was, he was always a great draw. Yeah. But Hogan, when he did that Rocky thing, and then he went to WWF, and it just took off, and wrestling got big everywhere. You're right. Yeah. That's when it really took off again.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in the 90s. I was 10 in 90. So so I'm talking like
you
my
just want to make me feel old, don't you?
No, I'm not. I'm just saying like my childhood was like get home and turn on, WCW, like I grew up watching that. So for me, like when I hear the older stories of beforehand, like, even how, Ric Flair and all this stuff, like that's not what we saw. We would turn it on. It was bad guys and good guys all the time, Right. And like, so the 90s was like this golden era of some of the best, to me, like I thought was the funnest storytelling and, some of the coolest matches. And you guys, like, I don't know, it was just fun to watch it. It's fun to go back and watch all that too, It's weird now.
Yeah, it is.
It feels like wrestling went from good guys and bad guys to kind of like it's more. It doesn't seem like anyone's really the bad guy. It's more kind of a drama based. There's a lot of more, interpersonal storytelling that's going along with it, and it feels more a little more soap opera. It's like I don't know. I don't want to say that. I don't want to lose my man card here.
Yeah, a lot more soap opera and a lot more walking and talking than we did.
Yeah,
part of the show is on the mic hole a lot, so they're always talking and telling stories a lot more than they are working. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I think that's wild because even like you guys' stories tell, like when you were starting to become the Hulksters fan, and you'd run out and talk about, and then Kevin comes out and he's so physical with you. There's not a lot of conversation. Like, what are you doing? It's just like he's whacking you upside the head. He's grabbing you by the robe. Like there's no interpersonal drama happening here. Like, just stop doing this and get back here. What are you thinking? So it is. You could start to tell that probably in the 2000s is when you started to see like we're going a different direction completely.
Yeah,
so,
they did about early 2000, and it's kind of moved that direction quite a bit. Yeah.
My joke continues to be with people is I just think the 90s was like a golden era of certain of I feel like everything amazing happened in the 90s in my personal, but of course that's because I grew up in the 90s. So
right.
Like the cartoons were better. Everything was better in the 90s.
Oh.
So
I won't argue that with you.
Cooler. Yeah.
80s and 90s were good times.
Yeah. I mean, nothing. I mean, it's its own beautiful culture that goes along with that. So, well, that's awesome. So, and then, so then for a while you're kind of tagging, you're on the same team as Hulk Hogan and during that time, like who are people that you enjoyed working with in that season?
Well, I always enjoyed working with Flair and those guys because Flair's such a talent.
Yeah.
And then Big Boss Man and all those guys he was something else at the time, but that's why I always knew him because when Ray and I started, he was always the Big Boss Man. But yeah, he was a great guy to work with. So I got a chance to work with a lot of good top talent and a lot of good heels.
Wow, that's amazing.
Well, the other way, when I was a bad guy, I always got to work with the real good baby faces like Sting and all those guys. So it was a lot of fun. Cool.
Yeah, you got to work with Sting at the beginning, huh? That's really neat.
Yeah, and then also the Dungeon of Doom, and then also Dusty's older kid too was there. He was the cowboy, and so worked a lot with him. And Rick Rude was my tag team partner, and so was Paul Orndorff. So that was fun working heel with those guys.
So, and if this is something I'm going too far in, but I was when you watch a lot of the biographies of some of the wrestlers that gotten their biographies done, there's always, it seems like when the era of drug testing came out, before that, did y'all know there was a lot of that drama going on? Was there a lot of problems coming from that? I mean, I'm sorry, I don't know if that's, I don't know. I didn't even like grace into this conversation. I was like, hey, well, like, I mean, like, growing up behind the scenes, was there a lot of that you guys were having to deal with?
Oh yeah.
With that?
Yeah, there was. I mean, and that's kind of Vince in the WWF. He was, I don't know what he did, but he was getting through to a doctor to all the guys, and that's why that came up. And then they ended up going to court with it and all that stuff. And then both at that time, and then when that happened, both organizations started drug testing, for anabolic steroids. So I mean, and that kind of slowed it down. But they don't test anymore. You can tell you that.
What? No, all those guys are natural. What are you talking about? That's the natural body of a 40-plus-year-old athlete right there.
I fit to argue. I fit to argue with that one.
And exercise is all it takes to.
Yeah.
No. Well, I think. I don't know. I don't know the answer on some of that stuff because I think some of it's like, if I don't know, it's one of those hard things, because I don't know. I guess in the 90s,
Well, it's an acting too. Any of that stuff, you can tell when actors are on it and when they're off of it, depending on who their part they're doing. They look like two different bodies. Like the guy that plays Thor. When he's in Thor, he's yoked. When he's in other stuff, he looks good, but he's not yoked like that.
Now, you're not seeing the veins and well, even if you look at look at side by sides of wrestlers in the 90s, who are in top shape, are working out, are doing their thing at the top of the level, then put them up towards the guys now. It's like, I mean, you can, if you can't see the difference, you're not paying attention. So
some pretty good pharmacy, I can tell you that.
Yeah. So it's funny. It's like the culture has gotten around this idea where they just don't care anymore, because it was the culture crying out to stop that. Right.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know.
And
That's a wild thing.
now, because you see it, you see it in anything performance. You can always tell when somebody's on a cycle and when they're not by how they look on that film.
Yeah. Yeah. I watch a lot of bodybuilders. I'm getting into bodybuilding myself, and it's
now
they
you can tell. My God, the guys that are on top, they don't even look human.
No. And I guess part of it now is there's at least an honesty coming out of all this, where most of these guys are telling you they're not natural, they're not natty at this point.
No.
So, but I think like, I think I'm grateful as a kid that that wasn't the body type I was seeing, because it is unachievable unless you're willing to go down the path.
Give up your I mean, because
so for me growing up, it was like, just be big and be bulky and just be able to, I mean, all you guys had, you guys all were yoked back then. You just didn't have the pharmaceutical edge that it's just unachievable though. It's unachievable, and even if those guys do have someone watching them, I worry. Like, I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, sorry.
When you look at bodybuilding back in Arnold's day, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They all had great physiques, but they looked more like a human being.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now they don't even look like a human being. They just look like a freak show.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is that way. It's wild to watch, and I don't know. I mean, at some point I wonder if there'll be a cry back, but it seems like if culture is starting to accept it,
I just think, it's been around long enough that people just accept it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like when you start watching bodybuilders and professional wrestlers, one of the things that you start getting advertisements for is injections for peptides and testosterone replacement and all that stuff. Like it's in my feed. It's in my feed all the time. So
right.
I'm 44. Should I start? Should I talk to my doctor too? So
yeah. Well, I know it, because once you get over 40, our testosterone really drops big time.
Yeah. Well, and I again. Anything, I think if the doctor's watching you and you're doing it safely,
well, you're getting tested. You're going through lab tests. I mean, they're looking at your blood. They're looking at your urine. I mean, they're checking all which is important. You're right.
Yeah, but if you're going the other side and it's untested, and I think that's my worry, is like these young guys that are coming up, they're trying to do something unnatural, and it's like, I'm worried you're going to stroke out, or your blood's thickening and you don't even realize it's happening. And there's so many dangers if you're not careful.
Oh yeah. So. And they take such large amounts, more than a doctor would ever recommend, which is also dangerous.
Yeah. Well, and then all of them are getting promoted into movies. I mean, so we got all these wrestlers now with these, who are moving into that area. Yeah,
they are.
The guy, I can't think of it. Just slipped my mind. The guy plays Drac the Destroyer on Marvel. Who? Good grief, the bald.
Oh yeah. Anyways, now he looks more trim now than he did when he wrestled, though.
He said he's done trying to carry that body type, and so like he's coming back on the other side now. So
yeah, because it's hard as you get older. It's harder on your joints.
Yeah. So overall, okay, here's the thing. I wonder, do you think the guys in your era probably have had longer? You guys probably sustained way more injuries than the guys now. You think, or?
Oh yeah,
because y'all were truly physical in what you were doing. Like,
it was a lot more physical. Yeah, you could get hurt. Yeah, especially if you wrestled in Japan and overseas, they were even more physical than us.
Yeah. Talk about Japan. I heard you on an interview. You said you guys don't even stay there very long, like because how
physical it is. They usually book a tour you're on tour for maybe 12 to 18 days. And you work every day. You have maybe one day off, but it's physical. I mean, when I was there, I was healed. So they don't give me one of them damn sticks. What do they call those sticks that they have?
The bamboo sticks.
Yeah. And they'd have me chase them through the crowd and scare people. And they, in America, if you went through the crowd, you could get sued, right? In Japan, they made me chase all those poor guys around and everything and all that stuff. And the little Japanese would run, like they thought I was Godzilla, but they wanted that because they put them in the seats. But it was just more physical. But that was kind of the way it was. It's just a lot tighter. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So what's the worst injury you suffered during your
my quadricep tendon? I tore both of them once.
How'd you?
I just got rolled up on wrong both times.
Oh.
So I've had them both repaired. When I was wrestling. So
yeah.
And then I also did my bicep tendon one time too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's crazy.
So
in the match, like this happened.
Oh yeah. It just accidents happen. That's what people ever talk about. Well, like Steve, I probably broke my back in the ring too and didn't know it either when I did it. Wow. I found it at my 50-year-old physical that I broke my back and it healed on your own. Doc said, "What'd you do?" Well, I drank a lot. Someone wouldn't feel the pain. He laughed his ass. He laughed his butt off. But like Steve Austin, he broke his neck in the ring. I mean, just stuff like that. That accidents happen, and you don't really know it at the time.
Yeah.
Just because you take a bad fall.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So you guys, so even to this day, you're probably, the career then. You think that's even today though? The career is you're not going to make. You've got a limited time that you need to pull these things off, right?
Right. And the day I think if you look at the guys, they're trying to get in that movie, on TV as a movie if they can. Otherwise, they'll go leave, wait for a while, and come back because it just you're on TV all the time. Everybody knows you. You got to change things over. So it's not as long as a career because back then you can go to territory to territory. And you'd be a refresh, and they bring you back as somebody else who was totally different, so you could last longer. You'd work more days, but you'd last longer.
That's wild. Yeah, man, that's amazing. Yeah. Well, I'm blown away by this, but I think like when I think about all this, it's just like it's amazing how much of this went on, and people I guess didn't pay attention as well. Maybe is that what was going on? It was just kind of just expected and.
They don't today.
Huh?
They don't today. That's what I think. They don't today either. People don't pay attention. Our three major media conglomerates. They just feed us a bunch of how you want to say propaganda? There you go. Yeah. That's why Joe Rogan's big. That's why you guys are all getting big because people are starting to watch that crap because it's just wrong. It's not. They're not telling the truth. They're just giving you what they need to give you. And people just do their thing and go on.
Oh, yeah. Listen. Yep. No, you're right. Yeah. No, I think that is why this media is becoming big. Yeah, for sure.
Because you guys are growing and they're dying. CNN's ratings are the worst they've ever been.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these three major networks, nobody's watching either.
Yeah. 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 And I think too,
but Joe Rogan's got 40 million viewers.
Yeah. Oh,
and you guys, he's killing it. And you guys are growing too. Everybody kind of is because people are tired of watching that shit.
Yeah. Once you get to a place where you quit, where you're not too worried about what people are going to say about you, you just get to enjoy the benefit of connecting with people who want to hear truth and talk about that out. Yeah.
Sure. It's really something that's really going on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's wild. It's wild what's happening right now. Like, okay, we're going down this. Well, okay, here's a joke I make all the time, by the way. Here's what wrestling taught me as a kid. Wrestling actually taught me how the world actually works. Like, it's always because everything really is professional wrestling. It's like there is some realness to it, but there's a plan and agenda already set up. So like what you're really watching when you're watching these things, you're kind of watching something that was already prepared, and planned out. And so I talk about that all the time when I'm talking with people. I'm like, guys, you may, whoever they're telling you is the heel may actually be on the same side, as the people that the blue eyes and the villains may actually hang out behind the scenes, and we're only seeing stuff on the front end. You know what I mean?
Oh, you're dang right.
So,
that's gone.
So, right now, stuff. Yeah, right now, the whole world is freaking out because what's his name? Tucker Carlson went to go visit Putin. It's like, It's like, yeah, because you've made him the heel right now, but if you don't need him to be the heel, you'll turn him around and make someone else the heel, you know. So if it's not him, it's someone that's got oil connections.
Well, this stupid Ukraine thing, we're destroying a country over nothing. We could have stopped it months ago.
Yep.
And we're got to the table. Putin was ready to stop it months ago.
Yeah. Well,
but no, it's
we're
all
going down
about
this path. Here's something interesting that's happening right now. Have you noticed that the armed forces have now upped the age, the maximum age you can be to join the Air Force, and the Army, and they've also the Navy has lowered its requirements to get in. You no longer need a GED or a high school education. So if you're really paying attention, you're like, okay, what are y'all getting ready to do? You know?
Well,
so
I mean, and that's not, and that stuff's not good. That stuff's not good.
No,
it doesn't. It's not going to end well. A lot of good people will die. And I don't. I mean, you look at, because I've traveled overseas a lot, and trust me, the people are no different than you and me.
Yeah. No.
They might speak a different language, but they still want the same thing. They want stuff good for their family, good for their friends. I mean, China, we make them you're right.
Yeah.
And Jesse the Body, if you ever heard Jesse the Body talk.
Yeah.
Jesse the Body said that what helped him prepare to be the governor of Minnesota. He said professional wrestling. Exactly what you just said.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you realize, like, I mean, look, even in politicians, like the politicians that we have, it's like we have two parties. Okay, so we have
which is not good.
Yeah, which means that you have heels, you have the heels and the good guys. You have the blue eyes and the villains, you know. But the thing is, they all work for the same guy, you know, and they have backroom meetings, everything's being planned, and then they bring it out and they're like, oh, you know what they don't like, you know, and it's like, you know, it's that way. I agree with you. You know, like I don't know, I've traveled the world too, and it's like you meet people and it's like, man, everyone wants the same stuff. We just want
Germany, I mean, Russia, all of them. They don't want anything different than us.
Nope.
They want you to have a job, food, family, respect.
Yeah.
The kids that go to school, grow up and do better.
Yep.
I mean, it's all, they might speak language, but they want the same stuff.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the things I've noticed too, since we're going on this, we'll just go full down. It doesn't matter. We'll have
they may put us on Joe Rogan here one day.
Yeah, let's go. Joe Rogan, call us. No, but here's an interesting thing. If you look at all the major world wars that have ever happened, the first thing that's happened before we've gone into major wars like this is huge economies started having high inflation. I mean, when Germany went into war, their inflation was so high, it took a wheelbarrow of, I think it was the Deutschmark or the franc or whatever it was that they were using. Deutschmark. It took a wheelbarrow of Deutschmarks to buy a loaf of bread. And then, so what happens after war? Well, because you hit a place where your money is so fake. The only way to neutralize it, make it equal again, is you've got to have a big spending project. Right, because you've inflated it so big, you've got to be able to throw a ton of money to throw that back down. And so, what's the biggest thing you can spend money on? You know, war. And so we're going to send young men and young women off to war. And listen, when it's actually something evil, like you're burning people for who they are, you know, and it's getting to the place where you can't keep that to yourself. Yeah, I can see, like, let's stand up for something just like this, but it does seem like we are reliving both of the major wars so that we can reset the economies, because right now China's economy has crashed. Russia's economy has crashed.
We did that when we invented that stupid COVID. It was invented here first. They're proving that now. Fauci lied to us.
Okay, we've been canceled.
And we sent it over to Wahoo because it was cheaper. Bottom line.
Yeah.
And they warned Fauci that it might get out, and it did.
Yeah. That beagle murdering psychopath. Listen.
He should be hung by the tallest tree.
Well, but he got away with what he did with AIDS too. You know,
Robert Kennedy's right on it. Whatever that book Robert Kennedy did on, it's all becoming fact now.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's where we're at. We're at that place right now, and I think that's one of the things I do appreciate wrestling. Like, this is why I see it now. It's like, I get it. I get what you're doing. You know, in Japan, what do they call it? Kabuki theater. You know, it's just And so it's
And
like,
it's number 2 as far as draw
yeah,
behind sumo wrestling. That tells you
yeah,
how important it is over there.
yeah, yeah. No, I'm telling you, yeah, I agree with you on this. Like, there's a lot of things happening that, and the worst part is, again, go back to Rome, the fall of Rome. What's happening? They're having gladiator games, and so all that we're having right now is just they're distracting us with cake and carnival, and then we're fighting over each other. Like, well, I'm a Republican, and it's like, yeah, but you send a guy off from like the people we sent off from Oklahoma. I'm like, do you actually represent us?
No, not when they get to DC.
No, not as soon as they get there. There's a back room. We had a guy who
that's
got
the truth there.
Office.
That is the truth.
Yeah, we had a guy got in the state office, and he would not do backroom deals. And they lied about him in such a way that they ran him out. He would not. He would say he only things he wanted to do. You had to be straightforward. You couldn't put pork on the bill. I mean, this dude was gangster with it. And they ran him out as quick as he got in. He served one term, wouldn't do any backroom deals, and they ran him off.
I think that's what
Oklahomans are like. Hey, we got rid of the bad guy. It's like, no, you didn't, dummy. You got rid of the only honest guy we had put in office in a while. You ran Mr. Smith out of office, you dummies.
Well, if you remember, Tom Osborne was here, right?
Yeah.
And he was a House of Representatives. He coached. He only lasted one term because I don't think he ever come out and said why, but I imagine that's it. He wouldn't do the backroom deals.
Yeah.
And the other one is Ben Sass, who is our senator here. He's now president of Florida, and I know some good friends. I'm not going to use any names, but he left office because his family and his kids were getting threatened all the time because he wouldn't do those backroom deals.
Well, I mean, look at what's going on right now. We had the governor of Florida running for president who was wearing platform shoes.
Mm-hmm.
He can't even be honest about his height. Like, this is how fake things are. He's wearing platform shoes. Like, that's what we're doing right now. Is like, it's like, I don't know. I mean, that's why it's why it feels like it's kabuki theater. I mean, like,
right.
The person they're propping up now for Republican president candidate she works for, I mean, good grief. She's got more ties to, the world global, economic system.
She does. Oh, she does. Big time.
But, both sides are this. And so they don't really care what candidate wins. They just need a candidate that, It's just, it's just professional wrestling, bro.
He can't even stand up. Poor guy
what
can't
are you talking about? That is the most, sir, we are talking about the most popular president. He was voted in at the highest rate ever in the most reliable.
And I don't know how that happened.
What are you talking about?
How did he do better than Obama? I don't buy that.
Well, what are you talking? I can't. How dare you? This is treason. All right. There are people still in jail right now for asking these questions. All right. I will not be a part of this treasonous conversation, sir. All right. All right. Listen, he is so smart. He just stutters because he's thinking so much. Okay.
Yeah, he falls off a bike. Whoever decided to put him on the guy can't walk to chew gum. Why would you put him on a bike?
I don't know. It's weekend at Bernie's at that White House right now. They are propping that poor guy up. Like, let him go.
He's putting on a bike Silver Hills. It's like, why would you put him on there in the first place? You know he can't even walk up the stairs.
No, there is a video where he literally says to the reporter, I had my butt wiped. Have you seen that?
No.
This is our president. And he said, I had my butt wiped. Like, what are we doing? Like, how are we? Like, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. I don't care who you are. If your president says, I had my butt wiped, we have a problem. We have a problem. Yeah, it's exhausting. And then the problem that we have is people are afraid. They're afraid. They really are afraid when the curtain's pulled back. Like, they're really afraid of when the curtain's pulled back, and that's why they'd rather just go along with what they're being told.
Right? I know.
I'd rather just have a bad guy that can yell at. It's like, oh, you don't think like I do, so you're my enemy. It's like, I don't think we're the enemies, guys. It's like, we've got a bigger enemy, and we're just all being distracted right now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm telling you, like, that's the thing that wrestling did for me, is it actually opened my eyes up to the truth of politics and the world system. It's like, yep, this is it. So I was never a kid who thought wrestling was fake. I always thought wrestling looked painful. But as I grew up, I was like, oh, these storylines were pre-planned ahead of time. So by the way, as a kid, at just throw this out. This is a funny story. Hulk Hogan broke my heart as a kid. I grew up, and one of the channels I was allowed, because I grew up, I'm a pastor, and as a kid, I was my family.
Are you pastor really? Are you a pastor really? Awesome. Good.
I was a pastor during COVID. They didn't close his church down. So
good for you. That's good. Why would you close? It's like Kennedy said. Why would you close the churches down? Places to meet.
Yeah.
But they didn't want us to meet.
You know why I knew I couldn't close down? Here's why I knew I couldn't close down. Okay. They didn't close in Oklahoma. They've legalized marijuana. They didn't close down marijuana shops. They didn't close down strip joints. They didn't close down Lowe's. They didn't close down Walmart. And so I just said, if you come and board up my place, I'm going to host my church service in the plumbing section of Lowe's because it's not shut down and everyone can go there. Like, this is silly, And so like when they didn't close down, but every mom and pop shop around me, we were raising money to keep them going because they were trying to close them down. So
that's what they were trying to do. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Oh, it's horrible.
Amazon becomes a $1 trillion, multi-trillion dollar organization over 2020 when every mom and pop is shutting down. And what's crazy about that is the people who are most affected by that are minority people, because minorities as a whole are the ones who start mom and pop shops at the highest rate. So it's like,
right.
It's like, I'm for you. I want you to be wealthy. I want to be wealthy. I want you to be wealthy. I want to have enough money to buy stuff from you. I want you to be so wealthy I can come eat at your joint. You're like, this is what we can do together, So yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So why do you think billionaires went up and people went to starving to the streets more?
Yeah.
During that time.
Yeah. No, I'm telling you. And then the suicide rate. As a pastor, I was watching. Again, I'm gonna probably have to. We'll see if it may not. I'm not big enough that it matters, but like the suicide rate went up for 12 to 15-year-olds. We had an epidemic of 12 to 15-year-old teenagers
countrywide
offing themselves. Yeah. And then, you got people with mental health issues and they're being told stay at home. It's like, that's the worst thing we can do. You need to be around people. Like, you don't need to listen to the voices of yourself right now. You need to listen to the voices of friends,
Right. Exactly.
Pornography is at its highest rate during 2020. Pornhub has made so much money. And what's crazy about that is that has child pornography on it. It has slavery on it. Sex trafficking is happening on this thing, and they keep getting busted for doing dirty stuff. And that thing exploded during 2020. So yeah, when the mayor of our town called and asked if I was shutting down the church, I was like, nope. I honor you and your position, but no, your authority ends at the threshold of our church door, because I serve ultimately King Jesus. You know what I mean?
What they say?
Well, he did this whole thing. He said, we have an older population. Now, I'm also a guy who believes in the power of prayer. Okay, so he said, we have an older population and we're trying to keep everyone safe. So I said, tell me who gets sick in our town. I will go and knock on their door and I'll pray for them. And the mayor just said, do what you want. He's like, I'm dealing with a madman, And
good for you. Good for you.
And then every major church in our town, in our city, shut down. So then all the
people here in Omaha.
Tired.
It did here in Omaha too.
Yeah. So they got tired of going to church on the internet. So and what we did is we just said, look, we're going to break fear off you, because fear is the epidemic here. It's not the sickness, it's fear. So we started having, for the first 5 months, it was summer, it was beautiful weather. So we just went outdoors in the parking lot, set up a huge trailer and put everything on there. Right. And we went from this tiny church to being this giant church, because everyone was pulling up and getting out of their car and getting lawn chairs. And, we got hillbillies and pickup trucks and their whole back end's decked out to sit on it. And
people are at least getting together.
Yeah, we benefited. From, and if you were afraid, we also had a radio. So we were broadcasting into people's cars. So if you were nervous that you were going to get sick, because listen, there were some comorbidities that would kill you. But I'll tell you this, here's what happened. In our church, in our town, in our church, we only had one person pass away from COVID, and they were fine until the treatment for COVID. So we
Yeah.
met the whole time.
We had the treatment all the time with that stuff. I can't remember whatever it's called, but it's for malaria. We've had around 30 or 40 years.
yeah.
It works. And I'll tell you how it works. Okay, why Africa, the continent of Africa, because they take it because of malaria, had 2% death, and hardly anybody had COVID shots. So don't tell me it don't work.
No. Yeah. No, I agree with you. Yeah. I agree with you. But yeah.
I'm glad what you did, because at least you kept, and that's probably why you only had one death, because you kept everybody's positive. Because that's part of it. If you sit home all the time and you can't get nowhere, talk to anybody, you're going to go nuts. Even a normal person's going to have problems physically and mentally.
Well, and if you sit outside for an hour to 2 hours during a church service, you're also getting vitamin D. You're getting out of your house. What's interesting.
How screwed up California, keeping people off of beaches in the ocean when that's the best thing for them.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. No, it's crazy. Yeah, I'm telling you, like, the world we're living in right now. If I think people need to understand, like, this is just theater right now, and there are some real people. You just got to be able to pay attention to who really is,
and find them and get them into office. Basically, yes, I agree.
Yeah. And so I'm hoping, man, I'm hopeful for real people to get into office. But, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I really don't know what it's going to take, except it's the one thing I would say probably need to watch out for is it seems like there's a tension that looks like it seems like history's about to repeat itself. It does feel like there's tension brewing that would lead to civil unrest in our own country. You know what I mean?
My children talk about it. There's a worry amongst young people, and you probably see because your position in the church and stuff. And I mean, it's they've really created a monster by all this stuff, and it's not good. It's not good for people's mental health. And you're right, it could. Yeah. I mean, why are we fighting our own people? But it could happen. You're right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Texas right now is fighting the federal government, right now. And
I know.
And other states are now sending people to back the federal government instead of Texas. And it's like that to me says a lot. And then, it's like, well, okay, let's distract them more. And, so it's like they're working hard to start this World War III to really to do the Great Reset. They want a Great Reset. So that's their words, not my words. I didn't make that term up. They're the ones who said we need a Great Reset.
Oh, the power brokers, the big money.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They want a Great Reset, and they don't care how many of because their kids won't go to war. What's that old Creedence Clearwater song? I'm no politician's rich man's son.
Mm-hmm.
What's that song called? It's in my head now. I can't think of it. Yeah. I mean, that's what we got going on. Like these guys are like, they're not afraid. Yeah, we can start war. It won't cost us anything. It'll cost, those peasants,
we're still peasants. That's why when racists fight amongst each other, we're only helping them, because in the law, we're the peasants. No matter what color you are, we're all the peasants.
I say this all the time. I say this.
I don't care if you're pink with purple polka dots. If you're in this side of the wall where we are, you're a peasant.
Yeah. If you growing up where I grew up, I mean, we have trailer parks. Well, trailer parks, you can go, if you go into Chicago, it has the Chicago culture, like the impoverished area of Chicago has the same kind of culture that the trailer parks have. It's just we have different domiciles, right? Like, you roll up to a house that has no door on it, but it has a satellite TV on it, right? There'll be a lady out on the porch smoking Marlboros, but she can't afford milk unless she's on the wick, right? This is both sides. And then, but then you ask someone in the trailer park, and it's like, and they'll say something racist about it. It's like, y'all are the same culture, and they want you to hate each other, so they don't see they're intentionally uneducating you and keeping you broke so that you'll serve them. Yeah.
Bingo. Yeah. Right on. Yeah. You're right on. Yeah. That's it.
Well, and then even with it's like, when people accuse you of, like, when you talk about illegal immigration, they say, well, you just don't like Hispanics or Mexicans. It's like, no, I love them. I don't want them to live their life illegitimate, because if they live their life illegitimate, you keep them as slaves because they can't be above board. I want them to have the promise of America, so they need to come in legitimately. Yeah. When I preach in places where there's a lot of
I
Hispanics.
think
I
they're
preach this
bringing
all the time.
if this war's coming about, that's why they're bringing them across. There's more,
Yeah.
more to throw on the surface. Be honest, think about it,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
They
they're
need.
coming from they're coming from all over the world, China,
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah. Well, 2020 erased a huge chunk of the middle class, and that was intentional. Also, they just need elites and they need a lower class. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep.
You
But
and I think on
there
the
is
same
hope, my
page.
friend. There is hope, my friend. As a pastor, let me tell you, there is hope. Okay. And here is the hope. All of this was prophesied and guaranteed from the beginning.
Oh, I know.
So none of this means that the world's out of control. It just simply means God has a plan that's about to take place. And I'm very hopeful. I'm hanging out right now with 20-somethings that are some of the most level-headed young men and young women I've ever known. They want to buy property. They want to raise chickens. They want to homestead. They don't want to vaccinate their kids. They want to homeschool, and they want to have lots and lots of kids. It's like you did that, world leaders. Like you push these kids to a place where instead of running after what we see on TikTok and everything, there's a whole culture of homesteader kids that are like, nah, we'll just do our own thing. Like we're gonna build our own culture.
I don't blame them. I mean, this thing's a mess, and it is. And the rich did it. And when they started putting us against each other, race stuff, it's like going, come on, who's I mean, I really don't care if you treat me right. I'm not going to do that. I mean, I'll treat you fair too. I mean, I don't have those kind of feelings. I don't do that.
No, it's exactly that. It's like, look, I want to benefit you and you'll benefit me. Like, I love it. I love all of the things that come out of having people around you that are different than you because they grow you. But like, they don't want that because then they keep you separated. So no, it's all professional wrestling.
It is.
If we're honest. And and it's
when
weird,
Jesse,
man, go ahead.
Go ahead. When Jesse the Body said that, there's no truer thing. The Arizona get together. He came and spoke with RFK Jr.
Yeah. Well, okay. Here's something interesting. In Rome, at the fall of Rome, do you know that after they had what they called, they actually had emperors who fought in the gladiator games.
Right.
But it was still set up to where the emperors would win. It was just a way of trying to win. Yeah.
The people
they were just trying to win favor with these groups. So
right.
So even what we're seeing now, like everything that's going on right now is just that. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I think regardless of what happens, I think that there is when you see these extremes, there's always going to be extreme back. So like right now, because we're seeing it at this level, if you look at history, it seems like everything works on a pendulum anyways, right?
Yeah, it does. It does.
60s and 70s, they went off the rails, and then the 80s was all about, like instead of the free love, be a hippie, it was like yuppies became popular and, opulence so one's rebelling against corporatism and the other was like, we are the corporations, And so I think that's what's happening now. It's like these extremes seem to be swinging back, And then, again, as a pastor, man, I've got the hope of Jesus Christ and I've read Revelation, so I know how this thing works. So,
well, nothing against the Catholic Church, but let's be honest. How else to keep the Roman Empire going and not when you're falling and starting a church? Think about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to get, but think about it. If you want to stay strong, and if you look at the richest and most powerful entity and have their own guard, and think of all the gold they've stole and got in their basement. Yeah. The Roman Empire is still one of the most powerful things because of church.
Yeah, I could see that. I think where we see it is, even when that was on the rise, there still was a remnant church, like an early church that that never yielded to that and never.
Right. Oh yeah.
In. But yeah,
you're right there.
Anywhere there's power available, there'll always be those who are going to try and corrupt power.
Oh, no matter if you're part. Yeah, I agree.
But the message of Jesus is actually the only way to become great in the kingdom is to serve, right? So like if you get connected to a true church, when power is available to them, if they truly love God, they'll actually go low to serve their brothers and sisters. And so, even, I
Oh, I
think
know.
that's the hope of it all, is that, it doesn't matter what power structure comes up that is corrupt. It is Jesus Christ himself. To me, I mean, that's just where I'm at. It's like Jesus Christ is that answer for this. But that's my hope, brother. So
No,
I
think
but
no.
I got
More,
I got
more.
one of those radical tongue talking Pentecostal churches that they accuse us of being snake handlers. But I came to Jesus on drugs, bro. I was on drugs, and a pot dealer thought I was suicidal. So he was like, you know what? You should come to my church and get hugged. And he didn't love, like, he wasn't even a Christian. His girlfriend had started going, and she got saved. So he was just hanging out with her. But he thought it was cool they hugged people. So he just brought me one day. And man, I had a powerful encounter with God that just turned everything around for me. So that was me, So that's where my hope is at right now.
No, I respect that totally. I think I just because you care about mankind.
Yeah.
And that's what's important.
Yeah.
And if you look at Jesus' greatest lesson, that's what he tells us.
Yeah.
Care about each other. Care about mankind.
Yeah. Serve one another. He literally says, if you want to be great in the kingdom, you must be a slave to your brother. And so Jesus is inviting people. In fact, the last thing he does before he's put on the cross is he washes the feet of his disciples, which was a job for like a servant. So like he takes off his outer garment, which would be kind of a thing of pride, right? And he wraps a towel around his waist, and he kneels down and washes each one of the disciples' feet as their rabbi. And so that's the example we live by, and I think that's where the hope is. Like, when you find a young generation of people who like, oh, we can live like that. I think there is a hope. I think there is hope that
I agree.
Something can be turned around,
Where it's just not power and money and destroying people's lives. I agree.
Yeah. But it's one of those things I think we have to realize they are trying to sell us a story, and they are selling us the bad guys, and they're trying to sell us who the good guys are. And so I think I think the biggest thing we can do is stop fighting each other, and just look through their stories. It's amazing how many of these politicians I thought were like, I was like, when they first came on scene, I'm like, nope, that guy's going to be awesome. And then he starts running his mouth, and you're like, that's weird how you're talking right now.
Right.
I don't know. I don't think you're a good guy either. Well, I mean, like this whole J6 stuff. I think if you're supposed to be one of the good guys, why haven't you mentioned the fact that people have been imprisoned without even fair trials?
Mm-hmm.
That's how I know you're not a good guy.
Yeah.
That you'll throw out the easy thing to get upset about. It's like, oh, well, let's say the word abortion because that's controversial and make everyone upset.
Or China.
China. Yeah. But we're not going to talk about the fact that people have been imprisoned. Old ladies imprisoned because why? They went on a tour of the Capitol and someone broke a window. It's like, no, something's wrong here. Like, I don't think you are who you say you are for sure. I
agree. I agree totally with that.
So yeah. Well, brother, this is fun. I didn't expect to take this turn, but I enjoy talking about stuff like this. So
I do too. That was great.
Yeah. So yeah, everyone, listen, learn from wrestling. Okay.
I agree.
It's real in what you're seeing, but the storyline is planned. Okay. So, and anyone who didn't give up on us and are calling us a conspiracy theorist, if you haven't given up on us yet, go get this book on Amazon and check it out. It's a great story. It's a great read, easy read. I wish the pictures were in color, but it's awesome. It's awesome. That's the only part.
Well, be sure we get together so I get it signed for you too, buddy.
Yeah, I'm going to try and get out to Lincoln and set up the podcast up there and see if I can get inside there. So
good, and I'll try to come out to work with you again on that. I'd love to talk to you, man.
Awesome. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I look forward to it. So. Well, this has been Nerd Swag TV. So if you're still hanging out with us, do me a favor, like, subscribe, and in the comments below, I've put a link to get a hold of Meet Dave Sullivan. This is a great, easy read you should get a hold of. I mean, like, you can knock this out in about 2 hours, and it's just a cool storyline. It's really, you've lived a cool life, brother. You've lived a very cool life.
We all have, as long as you get the opportunity to do it. Yeah, that's the key.
Yeah, I just love the fact
and everybody's life could be different and great. I mean, you just got to work hard and go do it.
That's awesome. Yeah,
I hope you have a little luck.
Seems like you've had a great run at this, and you've given everyone some great memories. And thanks for that character you gave us, Dave Sullivan. That's amazing. I love it.
Appreciate
brother.
you too, brother.
So,
Love you too, man.
All right, I'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye.
Bye.